Welcome to our show about strategies for success in the business of life. As you know, each month we will be highlighting someone I call a power person, someone who holds in their hands and in their brains at least one strategy for success that can be used by all of us. It is fitting that today we have our first guest who is a power person extraordinaire. She is a success coach, an author, a speaker, an adjunct faculty member at 3 local colleges, co-founder of a nationwide campaign, and owner of a marketing firm. And you know what? I get tired just telling you all of this. I'd like to introduce you to my very good friend, Katherine Miracle. Thanks so much for being here, Katherine.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here.
We'd like to talk today about one of your favorite subjects, I know, and that subject is personal branding. So what can you tell us about personal branding? What is it and why is it so important?
Well, thank you for asking. There's so much confusion about personal branding. You know, the shameless self-promotion and the whole point of having a brand. It's really far deeper, and our marketing firm, Miracle Resources, has spent years just looking at the psychology, the neuroscience, the communication behind what a personal brand is. A personal brand, think about what a company brand is. A brand is a promise, it's a truth. When we look at a personal brand, it's what do you value, what do you give to the world? See, each one of us has great talents and great skills, but personal branding brings that out. The other thing personal branding does is it helps us to communicate to the world what our purpose is and what our passion is. Now, most people can't answer the question that I always ask when it comes to personal branding, and that is, if you were on CNN and you could speak to the whole world, what would you say? That's your personal brand. And most people haven't taken the time to find that or to use the tough stuff of life to figure out what their message is to the world. And that's personal branding.
Well, Katherine, I know that you've had some adversity and tragedy in your life.
Yes.
And it's amazing to me that I consider anyway, and I know a lot of other people consider that your personal brand is your positivity. How did that happen from tragedy to positivity?
Well, thank you for that question, because that's a you're very nice and very kind about the positivity, but it wasn't always that way. When I was in college, a tragedy happened where my friends were actually driving together. I had gotten into an argument with my friend Dawn, and my friends Dawn and Wendy were driving under a bridge, and guys took this rock and threw it at the windshield, and obviously, it's 1986. There's not cell phones. The girls accepted the ride. Well, the girls had no idea the guys who threw that rock on 77, it's actually a V. Odom Boulevard exit, the guys who threw the rock were the same ones that offered the ride. The rest of which you can read in news stories. I can't talk about it without getting very upset. My friends were murdered that night. They were kidnapped. It was documented what happened to my friends. And because I was supposed to be with them, because of the argument with Dawn, I went into a mode that wasn't positive. I went into, I don't trust the world. I hate the world. Why would God let something like this happen? I cut off all my relationships. There were very few people I trusted besides like my mom and dad and my sister. I just really, went into a bad place. And now we would call that post-traumatic stress disorder. We would call that, the kind of trauma that you have after you go through something. And when I look at it now, what I should have done was sought counseling. I should have definitely sought counseling and admitted that I was really struggling with this. I wasn't going to class. I'm a college student. I'm getting ready to graduate that May, and I'm not going to class. And one of my instructors called me and said, Katherine, I need your talent in the class. And I came back. And it's funny because now I'm a college instructor, and when they don't come to class, I'll say, I need your talent in class to get them to come back. And so now what I've studied, again, through psychology, through neuroscience, is what's called post-traumatic growth. And not a lot of people know about post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth and working in that direction of using your mind to what you want to come up with. And here's just a small example. The bridge that I told you about that my friends were driving under, I have to take that bridge when I teach at the University of Akron. I have to go under that bridge. For years, I would cry every time I went under, I would like relive the whole thing. I wasn't using my mind correctly. Now what I do when I go under that bridge, of course I acknowledge it, but I think of the good memories. I think of all the great times with my friends. I think about what a difference they made in my life. And so do you see the personal brand is when you take what we call that fire inside you, something you're angry about or something that is holding you back, and you actually go to post-traumatic growth.
Neat.
That's it.
That's quite a story. Tell us then how, now you've told us how you developed your personal brand of positivity. Can you tell us how any one of us can develop a personal brand?
Well, personal branding, just like branding for a company, is best done when you look at the inside out. Too many times people will focus on external. They're focused completely on what does someone look like, or this is that skill, that skill. What I want people to think about is this. A treasure chest is what you have inside you. There's skills, there's value, there's talent there. Your job is to pull that out. And creating your personal brand, and again, that's going through using books, going to seminars. My book comes out in June, and that book is called Ignite Your Revolution, and it's a full process that goes along with the workshop. And the key to that is you've got to invest the time. Now, a lot of people will find their personal brand after they've gone through something tough, or they're looking for a new job, or they're a job seeker. Well, I wouldn't wait on finding a personal brand. I looked at this process, we did the research, my students helped me with the research on what does it take to get you to the point of using your skills and sharing those talents. Again, not in shameless self-promotion, that's not what I'm saying, but actually being able to bring value and working with the people who can use those values. So what you're doing is creating a GPS for success. And how do you do that? It encompasses research, it encompasses time, and there's really no timeline. Some people, it takes years. The process we've created is a 10-year investment of talking to psychologists and neuroscientists and marketers, because we use psychology of buying. How do you use your mind? How do you use critical thinking? So for some people it might take 6 months, some people 6 years. Some people, they've already gone on that path. They just need more tools. But why is it so important? Because when we're not living to our authentic self, here's what happens. Okay. We're trying to fit in and be a chameleon, and that's the problem. When you look at a workplace and something just does not feel right, I tell job seekers all the time as I help them market themselves, if this isn't a fit for you, you're going to be looking for another job in 2 years.
True.
So why not go to that skill set, your purpose and passion, and find the place that you can, do a great job and take that company to the next level.
So what is the process, briefly, of course, because if it takes 10 years sometime,
For some people.
Right. So briefly, what is the process that one looks at?
The process is first looking at even as a child, and I think you'll find this fascinating. When I speak on personal branding, one of the things we talk about is the nicknames that you were called when you were little. So let's say you were the pretty one, or the smart one, or the athletic one. What was happening was you were getting branded. Now, you may disagree with that brand. I have friends who they love their nickname, and that's something that helped them develop. I have friends that hated their nickname. I have friends that said they just forgot about it. But do you see what we do to kids? We brand them, and we say, oh, well, this one's going to be great at soccer, or this one's going to be great at this. Well, hang on for a second. What if the true value of you and what you love to do isn't what somebody branded you? So it's first figuring out from a child what things you really loved. What is what is called flow? And in the study of positive psychology, flow is when you love something so much that you lose track of time when you do it. You probably have something like that in your life, that you love it so much you just lose track of time. Right. Well, finding that and finding those passions and how you want to spend your workday and what type of people you want to work with and getting yourself into those places of what do you want in your life. Then part 2 is the accountability. This is not the fun part. Let me just say that. The accountability of the mistakes that you've made that you don't want to make again. My personal branding helps me know my yes and my no. And here's what I mean by that. On social media, we hear people say crazy stuff, right? Do you ever look at people's social media and say, I can't believe they just wrote that?
Right.
Well, that's the brand disconnect. What's happened is they've positioned themselves one way, then they write something that is a total disconnect. Trust is lost. A brand is a trust. It's a promise. It's the same thing for us individually. So first phase, again, exploration, looking at your whole life and what you want. Second phase, accountability. Again, being clear about what you need to change and what you want in your life. Then the last phase is pure research. You know, if you say to me, I want to be an accountant, I want that type of work, it's finding people you can shadow, finding mentors, actually going and trying that, doing an internship, talking with people who are in that field. Because when I worked with job seekers, you know what I found? People who said, I said, well, why did you become an accountant? They said, well, my uncle was, and I heard it was good money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then you're living someone else's life. You're not living to what you truly want in your life. And that's the key. So it is the business of life, but it's also the personal. And I don't believe they're separate. I know people disagree with me on that. They say, well, this is my personal life. This is my professional life. We live under a microscope. Privacy's dead. I mean, let's be honest. There's no more privacy. You can find out pretty much anything you want in someone. So when you're trying to live two different lives, that's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
You are who you are. That's your personal brand.
Katherine, you and I have known one another for a long time. And I'm going to ask you this at the risk of who knows what. What do you consider my personal brand to be?
Oh, I love this question. Okay, because I was just talking about you the other day with my husband, your personal brand, because you are challenging, you're now an educator, you're teaching college, you have your own business, you have your own online education, you have your own TV show, looking at your past jobs. You're someone who can challenge people, but yet you have compassion. Your personal brand and value is that you're bringing the intellectual wisdom a person needs, but you're challenging them with motivation, not with anger. Do you see the difference? Mm-hmm. Some of the people with their personal brands, I have a challenge mentor. He's on me. I mean, he is on me. He's my challenge mentor. That's his gift. That's not your gift. Your gift is giving to people what they need, but challenging them in yet in a compassionate way. You're a business coach as well. I'm a success coach. You know that I respect very much the fact that you're the person who can really listen. You're a person who will get the resources they need. You get someone calmed down to the point that they can be successful. You meet them where they need. So that's your personal brand. So no matter what career you go into, if you can't execute those skills, you won't be happy. If you were not allowed to use those skills, it wouldn't work, right?
Right.
So you are your personal brand through every post that you post on Facebook, through every LinkedIn update, through every interview. You give that every time. But it probably took you years to figure that out.
Well, thank you. And I'm not sure I'm there yet, but you sure have been a big help with that. You know, Katherine, you have talked about a return on investment and referred to that. And in developing your strong personal brand, there is a way to do it that gives you a return on investment, or shall we say can give you a return on investment. And we have a video clip of you talking with a group of job seekers about the importance of the return on investment. So let's watch that clip now, and then we'll talk a little bit.
Excellent. Ask yourself the tough question. Are you memorable? Some people would say, I'm memorable, but maybe not in the way that I want for this industry. So how do you become memorable? How do you capture attention? And let me help you with this. Power words. You have on your sheet some slides that have notes. Please go ahead and write in the side. I want you to think about power statements and an attention-grabbing statement that shows your ROI. When I introduce myself, when I stand up, I say my name. I say I'm Katherine Miracle. I don't even say the name of the company. Most people snicker because they say, is that really your last name? Yeah, it's really my last name. I married the right guy. But I'm here to tell you that I don't just say what I do. I say my passion is to help businesses and people increase their awareness and revenue. That's what I say. My ROI at the end of the day is to get you more revenue and get you more exposure, whether that's through publicity or advertising. Bottom line, that's my attention-grabbing ROI statement. What's yours? Do you repeat it? Do you continually say that to people? If you don't, you need to, because many times you will attend an event. And what will happen is that you will talk about some things that you do, and next week you go to another event and you mention other things. People can't keep track. They need an attention-grabbing return on investment statement. And then repetition. Don't let your guard down. I don't care if you're at a family wedding, I don't care where you are. When people say, what is it that you do? Or what's your story? You know how people say that to you? I want you to say what your passion is and how you help people. Short, one sentence related to your return on investment, and be repetitive, because people get confused. And they say, well, I thought Aunt Susie was doing this, but then I heard Aunt Susie was doing this. And guys, our families, our friends, the people we know are a virtual network, but we have to give them the tools to help us.
Would you like to talk a little bit about that and explain a little bit?
Yes, I would love to, and thank you. You know, 2007 hits, and obviously the job seeker world is horrible. People who had been in jobs 25 years, 30 years, are now out looking for jobs. They haven't done a resume. So I got involved because my friend Christopher McCrone and Jeff Nischwitz and David Akers said, guys, we got to do something to help job seekers. Well, I'm the marketing person with the marketing firm. So I'm looking at this, and these people do not know their skill set. Literally, they do not know their personal brand, the gifts they have inside of them. The return on investment is when we can look and say, what do I bring to the table? A lot of people feel boastful saying this, so what we created for them is a sales sheet, and my company worked on this. It's not something like a resume that's sent to people. What it basically is it says, what are my features, advantages, and benefits? And advantages is the passion. Why am I the best one, the best candidate? What is it about that work that I love? The purpose, which we call the features, is the actual work. That would be the title, like an accountant. But as an accountant, maybe you're the one who's great at business valuation. That's what you love. That's what you bring. That's your advantage, thus your passion. Then the last part of it is the benefit. The benefit to the employer by working with them. What pressure do I take off? And we have to be able, when we go to job interviews and when we talk about what we do, to state our return on investment. You know, our return on investment is really what we bring to the table for people, but it's also what we love. It's also what we enjoy. So I think that clip is great because it kind of takes me back to the day when we were having these Jumpstart Your Job Search events all the time. I mean, the employment rate was down, and people who didn't have money, they had kids in college, and it was, really hard time for people. And by doing that sales sheet and that return on investment, we help people understand themselves and how to market themselves without sounding boastful. So it was a very exciting time. We were actually even invited to parties. Once people got a job, they'd have a big party, and they said we changed their life, but what we really did was just bring out, again, that treasure chest inside them, all those skills that they had not realized they had.
Well, one of the things in the clip that you talk about too was asking the question, actually, what makes you memorable? And why is that so important?
Well, the key to memorability was, especially at that time, is you had 3,000 people going for the same job. And one of the things I often talked about was the janitor job in Perry Township. There were 1,400 applicants. How do you stand out? And when I asked the question of job seekers, they couldn't answer that question. Well, what is being memorable? It's 6 things, and I'll steal these from Tony Robbins. He talks to them about the 6 needs. Significance, making people feel significant, even through writing. Like if you're writing to an email to a potential employer, what are you going to do in an attention-grabbing wow statement right in the beginning of that note that makes you stand out? Well, if you know your personal brand, you can convey that. That shows significance to people, that they're significant and you're showing your memorability. The next one is certainty. The certainty that you're a dependable person and that you really want to be there. There are a lot of people who are looking for jobs. They wouldn't even check out the website of the company. They wouldn't do the research. That's not certainty. Certainty is being able to say why you really want to work at that company and knowing your skills and how you can bring value. The next one is growth, going somewhere together, that you want to grow with the company, that the company is important to you. Then there's contribution. If you're not willing in a cover letter to say, I will call you on this date to set up an interview, they're going to wait for you to call that day.
So
and
you better follow up.
You better follow up. And I will tell you, when I wanted to be a college instructor, it was something that I had always wanted to do, and I got my MBA. I physically dropped off my CV. I physically stopped in, and I have always heard that I was the only person who did that. So being memorable is doing something different. It's being unique. I mean, I own a marketing firm. We're shooting commercials. I'm shooting one this afternoon. And the key is always, what makes it unique? What makes it different? And we have to think about that ourselves. So we've got significance, we've got certainty, we've got growth, we've got contribution. The next one's variety. Kind of like my example of bringing in the CV versus just mailing it. But then the last one is called love connection. They're one word in Tony Robbins. And here's what I love about this. Love connection is finding a connection with someone. When people say to me when I success coach, oh, you know, we're like oil and water, my boss and I, and there's no way we can connect and get along. And I tell them, you're lying to me. And they say, what do you mean I'm lying to you? Well, you're lying to me because everyone on this planet you can find a connection if you're willing to dig deep enough. It may be that you grew up in the same town and you didn't know it. It may be that you like, you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't know. But your story is that if you're willing to work for it, that's what memorability is. And in the marketing world, I mean, we have to do that every day. That's what we do for our clients. But even as people, what makes you stand out is that personal brand. It's that truth, that promise that you bring to the table. And if you're not willing to share that, then people won't connect to you. And that's being memorable.
Well, we so often hear in business anyway about a unique value proposition.
Yes.
And certainly being memorable is a proposition that is very unique. You know, one of the things that I know that you do and really ties in with the personal branding is your campaign to bring respect into everyday life. And as such, you are the co-founder of a national movement called America's Respect Revolution. Tell us about that, would you please?
Oh, thank you for asking. It's absolutely huge. And when you talk about it, I just kind of sigh with the moment of passion because I remember the day that I said, I've got to do this. I had been talking with people about the lack of respect for brands. You know, you have people in a company that they are supposed to represent a brand, but then they'll complain about their employer on social media. That's one disrespect, okay? They're willing to take the paycheck, but they complain about the company. The other disrespect is every day in the media, you see somebody punching somebody on a bus or somebody throwing somebody down or, you know, an elderly person, what was called knockout. They would knock people out. And, you know, I guess I just got fed up the day of Sandy Hook and thought, you know, here's these kids that were murdered. And, you know, again, that's going to be my thing because obviously what happened with my friends, you know, that just injustice, I just had to use my voice. And so our documentary, which is called America Lost, A Brand and Culture in Crisis. And what it's about is the simple disrespect, even to the point of, we've gotten to the point we're so desensitized that we'll say, oh, there was a school shooting. I'll literally walk down a hall of a corporation. Somebody goes, oh yeah, there was a school shooting today. It's like it's nothing. And yes, it's marketing's fault. It's media's fault. That's why I teach people to use their mind for marketing for good and use critical thinking. But what we look at is the word itself. When someone wears a bracelet that says respect or a t-shirt with respect, they stop and think, am I being respectful? We believe, and this is everybody I'm involved with America's Respect Revolution and getting you involved with it as well, is this. We need speakers in schools. We need coaches. You know, we can't just look at the schools and say, hey, you should be able to find every Adam Lanza, every one of the school shootings, because these are copycats, and we know that. Psychologists tell us that. So what are we doing to get to the kid who doesn't have a coach, the kid who is pushed away and disrespected? Again, the way the person is acting is not okay. It's not okay to bring a gun to school. But we've got to look at before that. What is the core of the real problem? The core of the real problem is that when you're not engaged in some type of community, family, or you have a coach or a role model, what happens is we're not able to identify when people have a mental illness. Then what happens is the violence, the anger, kind of like what I talked about. If you're working with a student on personal branding, looking at their accountability, looking at their life and what they want in their life, we've got a better shot of stopping all of this from happening. The other part is making us aware of respect in the way of which, what is our culture? Is it okay that we're like this? You know, is it always funny in the media when we're making fun of family members? Like, for example, the role of the father. They always say in media that, you know, people laugh at the father. What about that piece of respect? So we're looking at a lot of deep things with neuroscience, with psychologists, with counselors, with speakers, And America's Respect Revolution actually funds us to be able to send people into schools and the workplace. Because, oh, by the way, bullying in the workplace is just growing and getting huge.
It is huge today. It really is. I come across very many examples of that, and people who don't even know that they're doing it.
Exactly.
How does success coaching really fit with the idea of teaching respect and personal branding?
Well, here's a great example. We were able, through America's Respect Revolution, because we have investors through crowdfunding and we have a website, America's Respect Revolution. A gentleman, CEO level, had sent in money so we could go into a company and success coach. We success coached a woman who shared that when she was little, her family was divided. There were problems within the family. She was the person who brought all of the kids back together so they could live in one foster home. She had to use bullying skills to make that happen. Now you're going to say to me, oh, that's not okay. Well, what her way of dealing with it was to get the family back together no matter what. Well, those skills she tried to use in the workplace. She's a great worker, did a good job, but when the bullying would happen, it wasn't working. So success coaching helped her to see that those skill sets that she had to adopt as a child were not going to work as an adult. And these kind of things, I mean, you and I could go back in our lives, and hey, we all have skeletons in our closet, right?
Right.
We all make mistakes. And we could say how something we did did not what we'll call serve us well. A success coach can help you map that out and plan a strategy so that changes. Teachers in the classroom don't have time to do that, and teachers are wonderful. I'm a college instructor. I work really hard. I do not give up on my students. I know you don't either, but we don't have that much time. So that's why America's Respect Revolution in the workplace, organizations, and schools, it's everything. It's so important, and I'm so passionate about it because it's not just brands. It's not just in companies and protecting brands. Yes, it does have a revenue benefit. There's no doubt about that. But the core of the real problem needs to be addressed. And I don't think we're addressing it in this country. And I ask people all the time what they think of respect. You should hear what people say to me. So I founded this basically because I got sick of talking about it and I wanted to do something about it.
Well, and it sounds like, obviously, that's a passion of yours,
Yes.
and it fits so well with the personal branding aspect. So when we talk with folks out on the street, we should try and figure out what their personal brand is. We should help them discover their personal brand and work on it, and really, through that, make a better society for all of us. Katherine,
Well said.
thank you so much for being a guest on our show today. It has been so great discussing about your passions and mine and learning a little bit about myself. And I wish you all the success. And hopefully our audience out there will start working on their own personal branding.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
having me.
My college roommate called me one day to relay a story to me that I thought might be interesting for all of you. Seems that when he retired from the Army, one of his buddies went home to Texas. The guy was great at landscaping, and his last name was Love. So he had a bunch of business cards and flyers made up with his name and his phone number on them. So basically the card said, Love Services, and his phone number. Now, when his wife and his daughter started taking those phone calls, there was mayhem. So the moral of the story here, think about what you do before you do it, because an innocent move might not work as well as what you might think.